Hello, and welcome back to another episode on Leo and Longevity's podcast. Today, with us, I have Lucas Aoun. Many of you probably know him from Boost Your Biology's YouTube channel. Um, Welcome, Lucas. Would you mind introduce yourself a little bit to the audience for those who don't know you?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for the intro. Well, I'm very passionate about biohacking and optimizing human health. And, I've been in this space for a number of years now. And yeah, it just really started out with a fascination into human biology and playing professional soccer. I was looking at different ways to enhance my performance on the soccer field. So I started experimenting with different supplements. I started playing around with acetyl L-carnitine as my very first introductory supplement into the health and performance space. And, I fell in love with this whole idea that we can pretty much take control of our biology. And then I, started studying naturopathy. So, I'm a fully qualified naturopath. That was 4 years of full-time study. And just during that period, I got involved in a number of different startups. I was actually involved in Australia's first nootropic startup. So we were the very first company in Australia selling nootropics back then, which no one had heard of that term nootropic before. And it was so unique and novel and foreign. And so just from there, I then expanded out my reach, created a YouTube channel, my own podcast, my own Instagram, and until this day, my mission is to showcase new and novel health information that can, benefit the world.
Nice, nice. So are you just before we start diving into more biohacking tips, so you've done like naturopathy. I know in the US there are two different kinds. There are like the doctor of naturopathy and then the regular naturopathy. Is it the same in Australia?
Well, yeah, Australia is actually a lot less difficult than from what I've heard in the US. Like for us,
Okay.
it's a Bachelor of Health Science.
Oh,
It is still 4 years of full time study, but from what I've heard, like in the US and even Canada, it's a lot more technical and difficult to actually achieve that title. But yeah, in Australia, it's not as well, I would say, recognized compared to like the US and Canada.
yeah, because in the US there's two. There's the doctor of naturopathy, which needs to go to medical school, and there are the naturopath, which is a 6 month degree you can get online. So that's why it's good to make the distinction of like which is
Yeah.
what you're not the 6 month kind of person. You studied it for 4 years.
That's correct. And even before I jumped into that course, I was actually studying exercise science before that. And I did a year and a half of that exercise science degree.
Hmm.
And it was funny because in between classes, I would be researching herbal medicine and supplements, which was not even related to my degree, but I was just too passionate about it. And then I was like, all right, well, what I'm studying, what I'm spending most of my time researching is basically a lot of the principles of naturopathy, which is like get to the root cause. It's like functional medicine, supplementation, nutrition, lifestyle. And then I was like, yep, makes sense for me to study naturopathy.
Okay. So during our conversations, you talked about some underrated muscle building compounds that are non-suppressive. So would you mind elaborating on which one are those? Because I'm sure the audience would love to know.
Sure. Well, first of all, when it comes to different supplements in the sports performance space, we have a range of different forms and different types, amino acids, different vitamins, different compounds out there. And one in particular that I don't see talked about that often is a metabolite of the amino acid leucine. Now, before I get into this, the main emphasis and objective is to look for or utilize compounds that can be taken by men who do not want to suppress their natural testosterone production. So these are non suppressive compounds. And these are highly desired by a number of men because they want to use things that they can, take consistently that won't actually shut down their production of testosterone or affect DHT or estrogen and things like that. And so one of those that fits that criteria is HMB, which is beta hydroxy beta methylbutyrate. So it's a metabolite of the amino acid leucine. And it's been studied for many decades, and specifically in humans, HMB has been widely used as an ergogenic supplement, which basically means, and that was the name of my Instagram, which was ergogenic health.
Mhm.
I loved that word ergogenic, which basically means any supplement that can improve physiological or psychological performance. And so HMB fit that criteria as an ergogenic supplement, as a means to increase muscle mass and strength. And most of the research has focused on healthy young individuals, and in particular athletes, to induce muscle buildup and strength, also enhance aerobic performance and resistance to fatigue from exercise. So I think HMB can definitely be considered as a natty supplement that
Mhm.
men can utilize for muscle growth.
Okay. Any other compound that you think they can like add on to the stack if they want to stay like in the low key like supplementation? Let's say for
Yeah,
building muscle.
definitely. I mean, the gold standard when it comes to natural muscle building supplements is creatine monohydrate.
Mhm.
There's a lot of research on creatine monohydrate. Dosage range from 5 grams per day. But there's actually a newer form of creatine that I personally think outperforms creatine monohydrate. And there's actually some pretty impressive research to suggest that this new form of creatine, known as cregatine, Cregaatine, actually is superior to creatine monohydrate, because what they've done is they've combined the precursor of creatine synthesis, GAA, alongside creatine, and they've combined them together. And from the research studies, it's quite impressive. I mean, regular creatine increases muscle creatine by about 2%, whereas this cregatine form leads to an increase by 16.9%, which is about 8.5 times more than creatine monohydrate. So we're looking at a we're just looking at an advanced form of a supplement that already has, some robust research in humans, as a means to stimulate muscle growth and even muscle strength as well. And I guess the other really important point to note is that with cregatine, um, it doesn't only the way in which it actually outperforms creatine is that it uses three additional pathways to enter the cell, including GABA and taurine receptors, and even via passive diffusion. And so this is probably what makes it superior to creatine monohydrate.
Any increased side effect compared to creatine?
In terms of side effects, I mean, the one I wouldn't say like a side effect, but an effect that I noticed early on was actually extremely vivid dreams. Because the
GABA?
GAA portion actually affects the creatine production in the brain, and I was noticing extremely vivid dreams when I was using this cregatine form. So that could be a potential side effect.
Okay. Next, you brought up the topic of D-Chiro Inositol. I don't know if I
Mm,
pronounced it properly, but I think I do. So, can you explain like what it is? Its significance to the body, particularly in relation to the 2021 pilot study on increasing androgen and reducing estrogen in males.
sure. Sure. So this one here will, really excite a number of individuals, particularly those that are looking for ways to raise androgen levels and at the same time reduce estrogen synthesis in the body. And so this particular study was titled D-Chiro Inositol, an aromatase down modulator increases androgens and reduces estrogens in male volunteers. So each of the 10 volunteers enrolled took this D-Chiro inositol orally, so they took it in capsule form at 1 gram per day for 1 month. Now, in those that used D-Chiro inositol, it was associated with reduced serum levels of estrone by 85%. Estradiol went down by 14.4%, and it increased serum testosterone levels by 23.4%. And also, it raised DHEA levels by 13.8%. And so, this is really significant because, we see a number of like testosterone boosting supplements. You see things like Tonka Ali, Fedosia agrestis, like Shilajit, different herbal supplements, and they claim to boost testosterone, and some of them do, but like this is a human clinical trial, although a small sample size, only 10 volunteers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there
It,
any other studies? Because this is like a pilot studies, and I looked into the study on D-Chiro Inositol on my own time, and it's mostly studied into women for mostly PCOS and type 2 diabetes. But most of the studies, I mean, I would say 99% of them are on women subjects. So
yeah.
except for this one, I couldn't find any other with male subjects. Did you find anything else by any chance?
No, but it's a good point you raise, because it's funny because most clinical studies on supplements are usually done on men, but in this case, like, and women are often left out, which is a bit unfair for women's understanding of their body and stuff. Which this is an important deficiency or deficit in scientific research. But yes, you're right. I mean, there's limited research, but this study does seem pretty promising in terms of like there's quite a lot of studies on PCOS. You're correct, because it helps with insulin sensitivity, and so if those insulin sensitivity benefits also translate over into men, then we've seen studies that show that compounds that generally support insulin sensitivity can also have a supportive effect on hormonal output and production, and also testosterone synthesis. So, yeah, I'd love to see more human studies on, and with a larger sample size, particularly, like more than 10 volunteers. But, for those early adopters, we'd find it pretty exciting.
Yeah. And do you know how it compares to any other form of inositol, like myo-inositol?
Well, I do know that myo-inositol is probably like better studied than this D-Chiro Inositol. Myo-inositol is very well researched in terms of modulating the central nervous system, assisting with modulating neurotransmitters, and even supporting magnesium balance and things like that. But there is actually another form of inositol which doesn't really get spoken about much at all. I'll be doing a video on it soon. Um, it's called ITPP, and this one here, I'm not sure if Leo ever mentioned it on his channel, but this version of inositol, ITPP, is one that's heavily studied in horse racing to improve their stamina and endurance. And this one is a little bit different. It works on red blood cells and different things like that.
Okay. So you see it like the world of D-Chiro inositol and inositol in general maybe involving in the field of supplements, especially for men.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if, in 3 to 5 years from now, we see an explosion of, D-Chiro inositol being included as an ingredient in testosterone boosting formulations. It's really not considered at all right now. Like, I don't see any supplements on the market currently using D-Chiro inositol as a testosterone booster, maybe because there's limited research, but hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years, we see more human studies, and this would support its use even further.
Have you tried it yourself?
I've actually got some coming in the mail, so I've got that many experiments lined up, Lucy. I find it hard to it's hard to track and keep up to date, but yeah, I'll definitely be giving it a shot very soon.
Okay. Yeah, let us know about the side effects that it might have as well, because the study was not very comprehensive, if I may say.
Mm.
So it's just early on, I think, in terms of the research. Next, I wanted to touch base on vitamin D.
Mm.
And so we often hear that the benefits of vitamin D, particularly in supplements form. So because there are many studies that have shown vitamin D supplements can lower likelihood of colorectal cancers, reduce mortality from cancer, also help with metabolic syndrome. Leo did a whole um, playlist on vitamin D. So how do you reconcile this with the idea of getting vitamin D naturally as something more effective than
Yeah,
supplementation?
absolutely. Well, when it comes to vitamin D, first and foremost, the best way to increase vitamin D synthesis in the human body is through sunlight exposure, like being exposed to sunlight. Second to that, most people would think, okay, then if I'm in an environment I'm living in a country where there's minimal sunlight, what is the next best thing to raise vitamin D? And most people will be like, okay, I'll take a vitamin D supplement orally. I'll take it orally, swallow the capsule or the pill, and raise my vitamin D levels that way. There is another way to raise vitamin D.
It
The other
actually doesn't
way,
work like that. So
what's that?
it doesn't work like that, actually. So that's a misconception most people have, because vitamin D is actually like processed by the liver, and it can be processed two ways. It can be processed by the 125 dihydroxide vitamin D or the 25 hydroxy vitamin D. And so because most people are inflamed, I mean, in the US, 93% of the population is currently inflamed, the vitamin D cannot be processed properly by the liver. So they think taking vitamin D would raise their vitamin D levels, and oftentimes it's not the case because they're highly inflamed. Sorry,
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, because people are very prone to vitamin D, but they don't understand. It's like everything starts. Supplements won't fix it all. Like you have to start by changing your lifestyle, or it won't
Exactly.
work.
Absolutely. And that's like vitamin D can get sequestered in fat cells, is what you're mentioning. And so like if you are carrying excess body weight or body fat, then taking a vitamin D supplement may not actually be raising blood levels of vitamin D, because it's getting sequestered into fat cells and not being properly utilized, like you said, through the liver and different things. So definitely supplementation is considered. Like there are lots of research studies though suggesting that taking vitamin D supplementation can help with immune health and preventing colds and flus and things like that. But if we're lacking sunlight, or if somebody doesn't want to take a vitamin D supplement, there's one particular probiotic strain, Lactobacillus reuteri. That one there has been shown to raise blood levels of vitamin D. And the other way to do it is also to potentially utilize a vitamin D lamp. So you can actually buy these vitamin D lamps at home, which I'm sure you've seen, the Spurty vitamin D lamp, and that can be used as well as a way to stimulate vitamin D synthesis with only 3 to 5 minutes per day. So that's another FDA approved medical device.
Yeah, I've seen it, and Leo had one actually. But another thing that I want to mention regarding vitamin D is that people have to realize that vitamin D deficiency in 90% of the case are only for European descent or Caucasian people. Some Asian also have vitamin D deficiency, but for some reason in African descent, they oftentimes don't have vitamin D deficiency, even if they don't go to the sun. I find it like
Yeah.
absolutely amazing to see the amount of studies that have shown that.
Mm.
And so it's like sometimes having exposure to the sun doesn't do it all, because your genetics also play a key role into it.
Absolutely. And actually, a quick little biohack for those listening in: if they want to calculate how much vitamin D they're actually making by going out in the sun, there's a pretty cool app you can download called D Minder. Have you heard of that
No.
application? It's a free application where you can plug in your longitude and latitude on your phone, and also input your skin complexion if you're like dark or lighter, and it can actually recommend roughly how many minutes you would need to be in the sun to generate, let's say, 10,000 IU or 15,000 IU of vitamin D. So that's a pretty cool little quick health trick.
Nice. Nice. And can you get into details for those who don't know about the importance of vitamin D's that goes beyond bone health? And so, like, do you have a protocol to make sure that you have enough? Do you supplement with it? Like, what is your approach when it comes to vitamin D?
So first and foremost, the most important thing when it comes to vitamin D is to get routine blood testing. So this needs to be done at least twice per year to assess your 25 hydroxy vitamin D. This is important because levels can fluctuate and they can vary depending upon so many different factors. Some people who take vitamin D supplementation, even if they take, let's say, 5,000 IU daily for, let's say, 2 months, some people will not see an increase in their vitamin D. They need to take even more. So in terms of its pleiotropic effects, I mean, vitamin D, it's actually not a vitamin; it's a hormone. It regulates so many different chemical reactions. It turns on and off genes in the body, so has an effect on potential cancer development, immune modulation. It even helps with mood as well. Vitamin D is crucial for neurotransmitter production. It has a suppressive effect on inflammatory cytokines. It helps with regulating different longevity pathways. Actually turning on longevity associated genes and pathways. So in general, it's definitely a vitamin that you really want to make sure that you're not low in year round, and particularly when it comes to like the cold and flu season. Those that have high levels of vitamin D during those periods of time have a decreased risk of, like the severity of their flu. Like if they get the flu, they recover faster.
Okay. I don't think I did check my vitamin D. I got very sick during New Year's Eve, and I found it very hard to recover for once. And I'm suspicious it's like one strain of COVID that I'm not fully sure about. I tried
Was
to do
this only
negative.
just recently, like 10 days
Yeah.
ago?
Yeah, I lost my voice completely for like a couple days. Like I just started, like now I think it's the first day I'm able to talk long term without my voice going down. I mean, so far it's working. And I did everything I usually do when I get a cold. Like I kicked up, like for 2 days I was in bed. Then I took all my vitamin supplements, you name it, tons of garlic. And I was fine because I helped one of my friends during her New Year's Eve event. So I was like, it was okay. But the recovery part, like I felt still like the sickness was in my body, like my throat part, like the tiredness. And I actually had stopped Neurosim for a month to see how it will affect me, how long the effect will go. But I'm starting again because I don't want to get long form of COVID. If it was COVID, I'm not sure. I stopped. I'm not gonna go get tests just for this. But I lost my sense of smell, of taste, which I usually don't when I get the cold. So that's how I became suspicious. But so yeah, I did all my tests. I didn't check vitamin D levels. So before the 90-day protocol, I started in between the sickness. But that's something I should add to my blood
Actually,
tests.
during that New Year's Eve period, I mean, I also got sick as well, and so did a lot of people around me. Like they actually got like there might have been a strain of COVID going around that just seemed to hit a number of people at the same period of time. In that period, I thought everyone was just burnt out and fatigued after a big year, like, and everyone's just crashing and just they're stopping working, and now their body gets sick. But yeah, a lot of people around me were getting symptoms of COVID, like the dry cough, the fatigue. It's the heaviness, like the heavy
Yeah,
feeling. It's a horrible feeling.
yeah, I know. I was not able to do it. Like I felt stuck. I was like, I'm recovering, but I'm not fully there. Also, I couldn't speak, so that's why I was doing research and I'm not recording anything. I was like, my voice is not there. Like, there's no point.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing in Los Angeles. A lot of people got sick. Even now, like, I feel it's still going around. All right.
There's
Next, I want to
actually
talk about. Go ahead.
I might actually mention just with that, Lucy. One thing that has helped personally, like recover from like that, was PEA, palmitoyl ethylamide, which is like it's an oral supplement. PEA has got some pretty good anti-inflammatory effects and some actual studies in preventing long COVID as well.
Well, somebody recommended me something a bit more controversial, but the horse dewormer paste. I don't know if you heard of what apparently Trump took. They're like, you should take it. I take it every once a month, so I'm sure I don't have COVID. And it's like, I'll have to do some research on it. Um, I'm not that experimental. So next I want to talk about cortisol. So we know cortisol is a very complex hormone. It's my best friend and at the same time my worst enemy because it has both like beneficial and detrimental effects. So it all
Right.
depends on the timing. It serves as anti-inflammatory agent when it's acute, but when it's chronic, it messes everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, given the complex nature of cortisol, could you share like which supplementation you found the most effective of lowering cortisol levels, but particularly when it's only chronically elevated, so it doesn't affect the acute benefits that we have from cortisol?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's important what you've said there around the fact that we don't want cortisol to be chronically too low because then we're missing out on the important effects that it has on inflammatory pathways. The immune system has an immunosuppressive effect,
Okay.
and cortisol has been one hormone that I've been very interested in for a long time because actually my cortisol levels, as measured through a Dutch test, which is the most comprehensive assessment for your cortisol output.
Mhm.
My cortisol levels have always been actually too low, and I've always wanted things that can actually increase cortisol. Like I feel better when I take things that actually stimulate cortisol. But if we're looking at the other way around, which is generally more towards like Cushing's disease, or like they're actually um, producing too much cortisol. They're under so much stress. We've both talked about taurine. Big doses of taurine can help with that suppressive
Yep.
effect and can help shut off cortisol production. Glycine's another one that you've also talked favorably about, and I'm also a big fan of. But the other constituents actually from a herb known as Polygonium cuspitatum, and that's emodin, Emodin. And emodin has some really powerful effects as like a over-the-counter supplement to suppress cortisol.
Mhm.
And actually, the formulator of Chemix Labs, the gorilla chemist, I think you may have seen him before. He actually has a supplement called Corti Block, which has
Okay.
this emodin, and that suppresses 11 beta HSD1. So it actually prevents the conversion of the inactive form of cortisone, so cortisone, into cortisol. And it does it very, very powerfully. And I've seen a number of clients who have used this emodin, and they've used it like about 2 hours before bedtime, and they definitely notice that 2 hours after dosing, they feel more relaxed and tired and sleepy, and they sleep really well.
Yeah, because cortisol level is highly correlated with also your circadian rhythm. Ideally, you want
Mm,
a cortisol peak in the morning, and you don't want it in the middle of the night, and you don't want high cortisol before going to bed.
mm.
Is this herb or supplements? Is it a adaptogenic herb? Is it like
It can be
uh,
considered, yeah, it can be considered adaptogenic. That term there, adaptogenic, is when I was studying, naturopathy. We learnt about that in the first year of our research. And adaptogenic herbs, things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, ginseng, like these are very well studied herbal medicines that have a modulatory effect on the stress response. And emodin, Emodin. If people look that up and they look up Corti Block, they'll see that supplement, and they'll see that it also has some beneficial effects on um, helping with glucose metabolism. So, assisting with blood sugar control. And it also helps to improve the immune system. It also reduces appetite, and it also has funnily enough, it actually has a pretty strong laxative effect. So it can actually get the bowels moving as well.
I see. How does this compare to adaptogenic herbs? Basically, like what I'm trying to say is how effective is this compared to any other way we can modulate cortisol?
It's a good question. I mean, in terms of like potency, I would say that it's at least 30 to 40% more potent than something like ashwagandha, or like a big dose of magnesium, or perhaps even some of the anti-stress ginsengs, like Siberian ginseng might have a anti-stress effect. But if somebody, the only person who should be really using this supplement is someone who has tested, like they can't just, randomly go and take the supplement. They have to do a blood test. They have to check their cortisol, make sure their cortisol was actually very high. Do a Dutch test just to make sure, because otherwise, if you make the mistake that I made 4 or 5 years ago, where I was like just taking every single cortisol lowering supplement before bed, and then I woke up feeling like I had no energy. That's what
Mhm.
happens when you have no cortisol. You have no energy. So,
Okay, so you just mentioned ashwagandha, and I think I want to touch base onto that. Because ashwagandha is highly popular for many health benefits. Apparently, it can solve everything. But there are many health concerns. So there are health concerns with the GABA system, and also a lot of case report of sudden liver failure, which
mm,
is very concerning. Given this risk, and I know you talk a lot about ashwagandha, but can you explain a bit more about your thought on ashwagandha? If you ever recommend it to anyone, if so, who would be those people, and how do you weigh the basically the benefits of it compared to the risks, if there is any way to weight it?
sure, sure. So, ashwagandha is classified as an adaptogen. So, it is considered like an adaptogenic herb. It helps to modulate stress. It helps to modulate the immune system, helps the nervous system. But the way in which it does these, the way in which it achieves these effects are not necessarily good for every individual. And there's a number of individuals who have now noticed a side effect associated with ashwagandha known as anhedonia, or a
Mhm,
blunting of the pleasure response, a numbing of the emotions. And this is not a nice side effect, at least for most people. Well, whilst there are some people who welcome the side effect, they actually want to feel numb, or they want to numb their emotions, maybe after a breakup or after a stressful situation. They deliberately want to numb their emotions. That's a different story. But in terms of this side effect, we're seeing that it can actually last for weeks and even months after stopping usage. So let's say you take ashwagandha for 2 weeks or maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then you stop taking it. A lot of these side effects can actually linger and stay around for a number of weeks, even months after stopping. And so this anhedonia effect is what I personally believe to be linked to the serotonin system.
mhm.
It's specifically desensitizing the serotonin 5-HT1A receptor, which is a really challenging thing to reverse. And I would actually welcome people who are listening to this video now, if anyone has solutions or has figured out a way to reverse this side effect, leave a comment in the video. Let's see if people can help with solving this.
So I never taken ashwagandha, but I have experienced anhedonia the first time in my life, after Leo and I separated, and because things got so stressful that my whole body shut down, and I was not understanding why I had zero emotion, and like everything was flat, and it was like you hear about anhedonia, but as soon as you experience it's different. Like, how is this possible? Like, how can you not feel anything? Like zero.
Mm,
And it made me like my friends were like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I'm just numb."
yeah.
And so I remember talking to Leo about this because we had heated conversation at the time, and I was telling him, I was like, "It's like you're not answering." I was like, I don't feel like I have zero feeling, zero emotion, and I have to have the supplement here. But I remember he told me, "It's like, hey, I have one of these supplements. Go check it, take it, and it will help with the anhedonia." And it indeed did after a week. So I have to figure out. It was a research compound. I forgot the name of it. I just know I have it. So I'll check on my box later. I'll let you guys know. But I remember that it lasted for at least a month. And before, I was not telling anyone. I was just not understanding it at the time. And so I can only imagine
Wow.
if people lasted for weeks. I mean, it was scary. I was even doing therapy and telling my therapist, like, she had no idea what it was. Like, she's just French therapist, nice for other things, but not, they don't understand biology really. And
Mm,
I was like, she asked me questions, like, I don't feel anything. I don't have any feelings, emotions, nothing. I'm completely indifferent. And I got scared after like 2 or 3 weeks. I was like, how long is this gonna last? Like, what can I do? And
mm,
at the end, I ended up taking this compound and helped. I'm sure with time it gets better, but I don't know. I can only imagine if people get into that state of anhedonia and can get out of it, how frustrating it must be, and how like it's bad. You don't enjoy anything. Well, you don't have any heartbreak or anything else. Also, so, depends where you are in life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is I'd love for you to share that. Once you figure out the name of that supplement, the compound that Leo recommended, there would be there's thousands of people who are desperate for a solution. So if you make a video, talk about it, that would be highly desired because
I
too
think
many people are suffering.
he
Hmm.
mentioned it in one of the videos, but it's still like it's controversial. Like, it's not something I think you want to recommend to people because it's not for everyone. I'll find it. I'll see if I make a video because sometimes I'm a bit afraid of making video with certain compounds because most of the what they call biohacking community, and I really hate that term, but most of them they're looking for shortcuts of things. So they want a pill to fix whatever issue without doing all the work that needed be beforehand. It's like
Hmm.
Huberman says it best. It's like first is lifestyle changes, then it's supplements. It's like you can't go without starting from the roots of things. So that's why I'm always hesitant to making those compounds because it can have reversed effects for people that are not living a proper lifestyle when they take the
Hmm.
supplement and they're not thinking through it. So they're like, oh, this might help, but I'm still drinking alcohol. I'm still doing these drugs. I'm still taking this steroid. So it's a fine line of what
Hmm.
would I share. So because ethically, I want to stay in the realm of I don't want anybody to suffer from anything. I'm not gonna do a lie strategy of giving ibogaine to anyone. Like it's just not the way
Hmm.
to go.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair enough, and I respect your decision to do that. And that's like, yeah, it can be controversial. Some of these compounds, can be potentially risky as well in terms of their, use, administration. They might have side effects, but when it comes to ashwagandha, when people just think that it's an over-the-counter supplement,
Yeah.
they can take it. It's not necessarily safe. And if they want to lower stress, why don't they choose other anti-stress
Mm-hmm.
supplements or, magnesium, taurine, glycine, these other amino acids, L-serine, much better.
No, it's been promoted like the big rush of anything in general. Like look at the CMOS rush that's been happening. And people not realizing that 90% of CMOS have like high level of heavy metal, which does nothing because heavy metals prevents you to absorb any vitamins. So it's like all those things is like driving me crazy all the time when people see trends and they just jump on it and not thinking through things. I don't know. Ashwagandha is a frustrating one for me. For you, it's ashwagandha. For me, it's CMOS. But we'll have different compounds against we're
Yeah.
against. So let's talk a bit about GDAs. So GDAs are gaining popularity. So GDAs, their roles is to stabilize blood sugar levels. In your experience, how effective are they at managing blood glucose? So let's talk about different case studies. Let's say for individual with insulin resistance or metabolic syndromes, but also in for fitness enthusiasts slash wannabe bodybuilders. And can you touch a little bit about the mechanisms that GDA work on the body?
So I'm very passionate about this area, glucose disposal agents, GDAs. Now, if you look at that term, basically what these supplements or drugs are designed to do are to, number one, help to lower blood sugar levels, or they can work by mimicking the effect of insulin. Or they can work by potentiating and making insulin work even more effectively. Or they can even work on another pathway, which is upregulating receptors on cells to enable blood sugar to enter the cell. So let's have a look at different GDAs that are currently on the market. We have things like berberine, we have things like cinnamon, we have a pharmaceutical drug metformin, which is technically a GDA. We have
Ish. I think I'll classify a bit different because I wouldn't for fitness enthusiasts. I think we can touch base on that after. Like
mm,
nobody, if you work out, do not take metformin. Like period.
mm,
But
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point in terms of blunting hypertrophy and lowering IGF-1. Not the best thing, particularly for natural lifters. They don't want to be using that. But in terms of other compounds, chromium is another one. Some other things like TUDCA.
Lipoic
Is it
acid.
which one? Alpha lipoic
Alpha.
acid. That's another great one. These are powerful compounds that can help to some of them work by increasing muscle insulin sensitivity. Other ones work by increasing liver insulin sensitivity. I know that 1,800 milligrams of TUDCA, TUDCA, can support liver insulin sensitivity. When I just had some before this podcast, actually. And there's a
Okay, Mr.
and there's a range of
Leo
TUDCA
talked a
and
lot about it.
yeah. Was he talking about the other form, like Udka, the other
Yeah,
one? Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I haven't
Videos
tried
on
that.
top. Yeah,
I'm keen to try that. I haven't actually been able to source it here in Australia yet, but yeah, Udka versus Tudka. Udka also has some beneficial effects, doesn't it?
yeah, a lot more potently, and I think I still have some. I have to check.
Nice,
I think
nice,
I have Stutka.
nice. Yeah, there's definitely a range of other compounds, but one in particular that I think has some pretty impressive research is dihydroberberine,
Okay,
which is an advanced form of berberine, and that's beneficial for lowering blood sugar, increasing insulin sensitivity, and what I notice is when I take dihydroberberine with a very high carbohydrate meal, and then I go train later on that day, I get much better muscle pumps and strength in the gym, and I just feel a lot stronger overall.
okay. So, is it the only one that you take, and is it your protocol? You only take it while you have high carb meal, and then go to the gym after, or do you think there is a specific combination that's optimal to not only control blood sugar but to increase, I will say, muscle mass and muscle like power?
The other one that I use also is brewer's yeast. That
Okay,
contains
I took
some
that down
constituents.
quick.
Yeah,
Okay, that contains.
yeah.
Sorry,
What was that? Sorry.
that's it. What did you say? That what does it contain?
It contains a glucose tolerance factor. It also contains like chromium and B vitamins that are good for blood sugar control. And you only need really like 2 grams per day of brewer's yeast to get a beneficial effect.
So you take it daily, no matter what your training is or what your meal looks like.
I went through a period where I was using it daily, and then I've taken a break, but I've used it on and off quite a lot. Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious. What's your usual? And I'm pretty sure it changes, but your daily supplement stack.
Well, all I'll do is I'll reveal what I had just this morning because it's
Okay,
it's 8:30 a.m.
fair
But
enough.
so I woke up. I had a sublingual adenylyl cobalamin, so a different form of vitamin B12. So I take that under the tongue. I do have a, I don't have a deficiency in vitamin B12, but I have levels that are being checked consistently. But I take that one under the tongue, and I always notice energy increase after using that. I had
Okay,
5 grams of taurine before this podcast. I had
okay,
2 capsules of artichoke extract, so that's for liver health.
hmm
Um, I also had L-phenylalanine, the amino acid, for
okay,
dopamine production, and I also had TUDCA as well. So I had 1,000 milligrams of TUDCA. So that's pretty much all I had. That's all I had this morning. No real potent like stimulants. I haven't had any coffee. I save coffee for when I need it, like to train legs in the gym and do high performance activities.
okay. I see. And then you have your supplements during your first meal, and I'm guessing at night you'll
Yep.
have
So then I
times a day.
Yep. So then I have I'll have a range of might have a GDA with my lunch because my lunch is higher in carbohydrates. Just for reference as well, people think that I don't eat much carbohydrates, but I definitely eat a lot of carbohydrates. I have at least 300 to 400 grams of carbs per day, and I'm not fearful of carbohydrates. If you've got good insulin sensitivity and you train well and hard and intense, like you can tolerate carbohydrates. And then I've got a nighttime protocol as well. So that's pretty much what I do on a daily basis.
I wish I had the time to do that again, but now it's just once a day for easiness purposes.
Nice.
It gets a lot of planning and being consistent taking them. It's tough. Do you plan them in advance?
I've actually recently reconfigured my supplement drawers, so it's all efficient and easy to use.
Nice, nice. The last topic that I wanted to touch base is more focused on aging and longevity. It's about nitric oxide. So nitric
Hmm.
oxide has, again, another one that has a dual role in the body, particularly when it comes to aging. So it's known for its benefits for blood flow, muscle recovery. But you wanted to share some of the insight how nitric oxide can potentially accelerate aging and the science theory behind it.
Yeah, so nitric oxide, pretty well known in the bodybuilding community as like a beneficial, um, opens up blood vessels, particularly for erection performance, like Viagra, sildenafil, improving blood flow, circulation, dilating blood vessels. But actually, nitric oxide, if we have excessive nitric oxide signaling and production, it can actually contribute to inflammation. There's research suggesting that high levels of nitric oxide is actually produced during inflammation, and nitric oxide is actually a pro-inflammatory free radical that can stimulate the peroxidation of unsaturated fatty acids. So if you've got very high nitric oxide plus you eat a lot of polyunsaturated fatty acids or PUFAs, that can create an environment where it's inhibiting mitochondrial respiration, and affecting metabolism. So yeah, nitric oxide is one that some people need to be cautious of deliberately raising, and actually methylene blue actually inhibits. Methylene blue lowers nitric oxide. Not many people know that, but it does have an effect on nitric oxide.
Okay. Yeah, nitric oxide also. Like, I was looking at a study, I was researching for the podcast, and I saw there are some of it that shows that it really plays a crucial role in oxidative stress. So
Hmm.
I know the relationship between aging and nitric oxide is not being fully studied, but one can make the link of how it does its work in this regard.
Hmm.
Okay, I think we covered all the topic that we wanted to cover today. I wanted to see if you have anything else you want to add or share with the audience.
No, I think that was great. I think most important thing is come back to self awareness. Like when any of these practices, protocols, like it's important to just maybe keep a log on your phone, or like just document your experiences. That's invaluable, and that sort of data is going to help you for many years. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to come on, Lucy, and yeah, look forward to being in touch.
All right. Well, thank you, Lucas. You have a great day.
Thank you.